Hello everybody and welcome to the 15th episode of Lazio Lounge, the first without Keita. With me today we have Alasdair Mackenzie, the Lazio Braveheart, and we have a guest coming back after a couple of episodes, directly from Canada. Hello, Mike. Can I call you Mike?
Sure, call me whatever you want. You can call me Keita even if you want.
Michael Di Mascio, how are you? And welcome again to this little podcast.
Pleasure to be back with you. Pleasure to be back. I must be doing something right, or Alasdair must be doing something wrong because I'm back again.
I'm doing plenty wrong. Don't worry about that. I'm just amazed I'm still here after 15 episodes.
No, it's great. It's great to be back with you, Vittorio and Alasdair. And you know what? I purposely didn't eat lunch before we did this so that I'll be hangry. Which is the cross between angry and hungry, and I can really let it fly on today's episode about the Mercato.
Come on, finally Lotito spent some money. I was surprised, if not astonished, of how Lazio Transfermarket ended.
He spent money on the fax machine because it was working on deadline day. That's great news.
He improved.
Yeah.
No, seriously. I think the biggest question is, are you happy about the signing of Nani? I think he's going to be the difference maker of this season. So I want to start with you, my Canadian friend. What do you think about the signing of Nani?
Well, to go forward, we have to take a quick look backwards. I just want to mention that whole thing and how it unfolded with Keita. What a farce. What a farce that we were strung along all summer long. And Alasdair, I'm sure, agrees because it was a roller coaster ride with what happened with Keita. And to be honest with you, I'm not surprised he ended up signing with a foreign league in Monaco. If we remember correctly, back to 2 years ago when Lazio was about to enter the Champions League qualifying stage against Bayer Leverkusen, we had a similar episode happen with Pioli where he wasn't happy with how he was being played and he was looking for a move to Monaco then. And then surprise, surprise, Monaco comes back. And I think they're getting him at an amazing deal of $30 million, where they'll probably in a year from now or 2 years from now end up selling him for $100+ million. So good riddance to Calenda and Keita. But I think this whole thing was a real farce, using Juventus as a ploy maybe to get more money out of some of the external leagues. The truth is somewhere in between, but I think it could have been avoided. Looking forward now, we have Nani, a guy I would have loved to have on my team maybe 5 years ago, but he's here now at a Lazio discount, of course, of $10 million. That's the only way Lotito will do it. But, if he scores 8 or 9 goals in the league this year, I'll be happy. I think it's a good return on our money, but we get a professional player with experience, something we haven't had since Klose left, and I think sometimes it's worth overpaying for somebody with experience that some of the young players can look up to. And I wish Nani all the luck. And my wife is extremely happy. She is Portuguese, and she's a Sportingista. So this is happy wife, happy life all around in my Casa Di Mascio right now.
Alasdair, what's your thought about it?
Well, yeah, I mean, just picking up on obviously the Keita thing, I completely agree with you. I think we're all in agreement that it's good to actually see this finally come to an end. And like I said on Twitter this week, the ending of it is as good as we could have hoped for, really, because we've got him out of the country, so we haven't strengthened the rival by his sale. And we've, 30 million is really pretty good money considering this is a guy who could be signed on a free transfer within the next year. I do have concerns about Nani, though. So I think we're going to disagree on this one, Vittorio. But my issue with Nani isn't that I think he won't bring something to the team in terms of being a talented player. My issue is that it seems a bit short-sighted in terms of where he's actually going to fit in Inzaghi's system, because it's pretty clear by now that Inzaghi plans to use this 3-5-2 because he's not deviated from it throughout pre-season and training. It's all he's using. Now, where do you put Nani in this system? I think the only place you can choose to put him is behind the main striker, so in Felipe Anderson's role. But is he going to knock Felipe Anderson out of the team? I find that unlikely. And then you're asking a guy who's played as a winger his entire career to adapt his game and his style of play to a new system at the age of 30. So that's my main concern here, is that they've sold Keita, who they see as a winger, and brought in another winger, but seem to have forgotten that Keita was capable of adapting to that new role successfully within the system. And I do have concerns about how effective Nani will be within this formation.
I think Nani brings experience that probably was missing in the last year, and especially with Biglia leaving, Lazio now has two very good experienced players. And when I talk with experience, this time I talk about players who have Champions League experience that Biglia didn't have. So Lucas Leiva and Nani are, for me, two great signings in that way. I don't think Nani is done as a player. I think he has still a lot to give. And when he decided this move, I think it proved that he has a chip on the shoulder and he wants to prove that he's still top level. As Alasdair said, obviously Nani, I don't see him playing centrally near Immobile. But this gives Inzaghi again the option to switch from 3-5-2 to a 4-3-3 or 3-4-3 tactics. Just imagine having on the field Nani, Immobile, Felipe Anderson. I mean, even Juventus defense would be struggling to the pace of this attack. My biggest question is, okay, next Sunday there's Lazio Milan. Who will play near Immobile? Because Felipe Anderson is still not fit and we don't know if he's going to be able to play. And Nani is recovering from a knee injury. And it's not the final match of the season, but I think playing well and beating AC Milan would be very, very important for the rest of the season. So it would be good to have Nani playing against AC Milan or Felipe Anderson.
That is a very good point, Vittorio. I really don't know the extent of this injury. It was enough for him to miss the first game for Valencia this year and to miss a call-up to the Portuguese national team during the World Cup qualifier. So I'm a little bit worried too, and that's what I was thinking about when Alistair said who was going to play. I think it's a battle for fitness. Who's going to be fit first between Felipe and Nani, and I think that's where the formation will lie until we get that dream mouth-watering formation of, like you said, of Nani, Immobile, and Felipe up front.
Yeah, but then how is that going to work? I mean, is Inzaghi now expected to rip up all his plans of playing with the system? Because I mean, I understand what you mean. There's this attacking trident, which sounds very nice on paper, but that does mean that Inzaghi is going to basically have to tear up all the work he's done so far, because 3-5-2 has been what he's been working on, and pretty effectively throughout this entire pre-season. So you can't just expect him to change all that just to accommodate one player.
But Inzaghi's been disrespected the whole mercato. He asked for a central defender. He didn't even get it. So I can't remember the last time this club actually listened to Inzaghi. He specifically asked for a central defender, and he was mentioning Paletta, and that's what he wanted the most. He didn't ask for another winger. He asked for the Keita situation to be resolved. He got that, but they didn't bring in the defender that he wanted. So I really don't think Lotito Tare, they really care about Inzaghi's feelings at this point. They had an opportunity to get a former world-class player, let's say, or somebody who could still potentially be on the world stage. And they pulled the trigger and they said, okay, Inzaghi, now you need to figure it out, how to implement this.
It's true also that Lazio this summer didn't have the players for the 4-3-3, especially with Luis Alberto playing that well. We saw that he's not a winger, so putting there Luis Alberto on a 4-3-3 would have been complicated. And at the end, I think there were only Felipe Anderson. And between Lombardi and this Luis Alberto, I think everybody would agree that you prefer Luis Alberto. So I think, especially considering that Lazio played with that tactic all last year pretty much, with the 4-3-3, I don't think that the players forgot how to play. And we saw it during even the summer, how Inzaghi loved to switch tactics. And with Nani, he has another option. So I'm not sure it's that bad.
I think another thing with this as well, that's like you said, Michael, the fact that Inzaghi, the one thing he asked for was a replacement for Wesley Hoedt, and he hasn't got that. So if he is to persist with a three-man defence, his options are quite limited at the back. So perhaps that'll be another thing that might push him towards reverting back to a back four, because if you've got five centre-backs to cover two positions, that's okay. But if it's to cover three positions in three competitions, it's pretty sparse. I just want to mention at this point as well, actually, we've had a question in. I'm a bit late to this, but Texas Laziali have asked us what you expect from Nani in starting 11, heavy rotation player. Can he be a true replacement for Keita? So I realise I'm kind of bringing up that question after we've kind of effectively answered it, but just want to give you a nod that we are addressing that. I don't know. I think that in terms of the centre-back issue, that is pretty shocking. And I do agree with what you've said, Michael, in that the management do seem to have kind of ignored Inzaghi. And we've talked before about, if he achieves well with Lazio again this season, can we keep him at the club? Well, it's things like this, him being ignored, that'll push him away in the future if other clubs come in towards him. And making that much money for Hoedt, I think we all agree was above his true value. So not to reinvest that in somebody is pretty shocking.
And once again, we've failed to get rid of some of the deadwood. Yes, it's amazing that we got rid of Morrison and Kishna, but Mauricio, I guess, is poised to return, even though he's been in Brazil this whole time, unless they're going to be able to sell him to China or some of the markets that are open. But I won't be surprised when I see Mauricio return to the Formello, which isn't a totally bad thing. I mean, if we want to go back a couple of years, there was a streak there where Lazio won 8 or 10 games in a row between De Vrij and Mauricio at the center of defense. So I guess this is the return of Mauricio, begrudgingly?
No, I think he's signing for a Turkish team. He had some offer there. So we should be safe with Mauricio. But one thing, the Laziali, it's a typical fan who love to criticize their players. And Mauricio is the perfect example. I'm not saying he's good or he's talented, but he just won the league in Russia. Winning a league, it's never that easy. So, I've been 1 year hearing that Rudiger is a great defender, and I was, no, he's not. And finally he proved that he's terrible. But, Mauricio is not that bad. I don't want him back, and he's going to switch to a Turkish team. It looks like he has big contact. But at the end of the day, he wasn't that terrible. The biggest problem with him is that he's dangerous because he made at least one mistake per match. That it's a little bit what Wallace used to do last year.
And so did Hoyt, too. Same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, they used to say, Faris, if you remember the assistant coach for Inzaghi, he said every time Hoyt is on the field, we need to adjust our formation and prepare for coverage for him, because there's chances that Hoyt, remember, naturally is a striker. He wants to get forward. He wants to shoot the ball, and he was a bit of a liability. So to get 17 million at his age, it was great business. So, yeah, I agree. I mean, we're no strangers to having liabilities in the back, and we're still going to struggle this year probably in defense.
Could I just bring up a question we've got here at this point?
No.
Greek Stav, well, tough. Greek Stav is just picking up on while we're talking about Wesley Hoyt. He's saying, which ins and outs would you consider good moves, both financially and from an actual football point of view? I suppose those are two kind of separate questions, but we are all in agreement here. I think that selling Hoyt for that money is pretty good financially. And actually, generally, I think this whole summer, the outgoings, we've done pretty well to get the money we have got. Again, it's another summer where we've lost some of our best players, which is frustrating, but to get rid of Bilia when he's over 30 for 25 million, to sell Keita for 30 million abroad, and to sell Hoyt for that much money as well, is, I think financially we can be pretty happy with that. The one thing I would say, because it was only a matter of time before we get onto this anyway, is financially, what the hell are we doing spending 17 million euros on a teenager who nobody knows anything about? It's absolutely bizarre. So Pedro Neto, Yes, very highly rated. Big teams across Europe have supposedly been chasing him, and Lazio have got him. But this is quite a lot of money. The second highest fee Lotito has ever paid while he's been Lazio president. Even though it's going to be in 3 parts, it's a strange one.
Yeah, can I jump in a second? First, again, if Roma would sign that player, Corriere dello Sport would have a special with 2 DVDs on. Wow, the new Cristiano Ronaldo, Manchester United wanted, Arsenal, Paris Saint-Germain, he's a legend. He goes to Lazio, he's rubbish. Again, I hate this. I really do. I'm not saying he's the new Cristiano Ronaldo, but he was really, really high rated. And Lazio signing, waste of money. Roma signing the next Cristiano Ronaldo, buy all DVDs of, let's wait and see how it goes. Because really, how many people said the same of Milinkovic-Savic when he came? 10 million euros for Milinkovic-Savic. This is nuts.
But Milinkovic-Savic was the first team player for his club. I mean, at least he had a lot of senior experience. Pedro Neto's played 3 games at senior level.
Yeah, but he's how, my son is older than
17,
him.
Yeah.
And that's crazy.
Yeah.
So you're getting this player that is already fit for the first squad. I mean, I'm really excited. Then you see how... And trust me, I don't believe that's the money Lazio paid. So we're going to see. But again, in that deal, we had another central midfielder that we were talking that Lazio was a little bit short there. So, let's wait and see how it goes. But it could be a great deal. And we're talking about Keita. It's 35 plus 5 of bonus, which is really good. So let's see. Give them a chance.
One question we've got from Rami Algendi here is about these 2 guys, Pedro Neto and Bruno Giordao, is if they're going to be used in the first team or in the Primavera because they've not been put into the Europa League squad. So, Michael, what do you reckon?
Well, they didn't come to Lazio to play in the Primavera, so based on that money we've spent, I think Vittorio said it perfectly on so many levels with the Roma example, but more so, they do have the experience in the senior level already. They were convinced to stay with Braga, which is a little bit strange. I saw an article as early as May that said Barcelona and Manchester United were interested in Pedro Neto, and they were convinced to stay. I think the truth is somewhere in between. Once again, Lotito wouldn't be spending this money on something that he didn't think was going to work, and he's obviously taken Tade and all the advisors into account for spending this money. And I don't think there's going to be a transition. At least we know Inzaghi is a great coach to start to utilize the young players and find the right moments to bring them into games like he did with Lombardi last year, like Murcia this year and last year. So I think they're in good hands with Inzaghi for as long as he wants to stay at the club.
One thing, if I can jump in, as they're very young, they're going to be in the UEFA List B, so you don't have to specify the names there. But as they are under 20, you can put how many players you want in that second list. So I'm pretty sure they're going to be there. This doesn't mean they're going to play in the Europe League, but they are available. But again, let's see. A player that was linked with Barcelona, Manchester United, finished to Lazio. I'm really interested. And let's be honest, this wouldn't happen without George Mendes. So I think Lotito would have never buy them if George Mendes didn't help them, selling Keita and said, okay, now you buy my players because I help you there. So
the wonderful world of football politics.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And don't forget that Lazio is the team in Serie A that pay less fees to the football agents. So I wonder if these things change everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to point out as well that Pedro Neto is also a winger. So
yeah,
going back to the Inzaghi thing, we've spent, the deadline day budget has effectively been spent on 2 players who play in a position that doesn't suit Inzaghi's system. It's bizarre. But yeah, I mean, in terms of answering that question about whether they'll be in the first team. To be honest, I'm not expecting Pedro Neto to play an awful lot of games this season. I think he'll be in and around the squad in the same way that a lot of the kind of youth team guys are, or the guys who've been promoted. But I find it surprising to see him, starting a lot of first team matches. That being said, I suppose if he comes on as a substitute, scores an absolute wonder goal, then he'll definitely be given opportunities. So, yes, it'll be an interesting one to follow. But like you said, Vittorio, it is definitely worth not ignoring the fact that this has come about as a result of the Keita deal and Mendes' involvement as well, which is quite significant. It's not actually just a player the Lazio have, followed and tried to sign on their own, because of their own confidence in them necessarily.
I mean, Michael, I think you agree that you are more excited in these two youngsters than Di Gennaro. I think everybody would, no?
Right. Actually, I have no problems with Di Gennaro. We see a guy that was very motivated to come to Lazio and to sit on the bench and wait for his opportunities. And so much so that he was ready to cut his contract at the end of May with Cagliari. So I just want motivated players on my team. And it's sad Keita's gone. He wasn't motivated to stay here, even though Lazio made him. And, I just want motivated players, and that's what it comes down to.
Michael has to leave us, so Michael, just 2 minutes to promote your new club. I know you're changing name, right? Can you explain a little bit what's going to happen?
Yeah, thanks, Vittorio. In general, we had Lazio Club Canada since 2006 here. And, the majority of our fan base was here in Toronto for the Lazialità here in this community. So in an effort to make it more localized, we want to rename the club to either SS Lazio Club Toronto or Lazio Club Toronto. And we'll have our first event next Sunday at the Shoshato Social Club, where we'll actually invite some Milan fans that are trying to start their own social club. And we're going to have them, which is, of course, unheard of in Italy. But we will have a few Milanisti in the house, and we're going to show them some good hospitality with 3 points.
This isn't like a Red Wedding from Game of Thrones kind of moment, is it, where there's going to be just a massive assassination of all the...
Well, I'm in the 1%, Alistair. I don't watch Game of Thrones, so fuck me, right?
Oh, no. Oh, well, that reference has fallen flat then. Never mind.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us, Michael, and have a rest of the day, and cross finger for Lazio Milan.
Absolutely. I hope to talk to you guys soon, and thanks for having me on again.
It's always a pleasure.
Cheers, Michael.
Ciao, ciao.
Alistair, we were talking about no one coming to replace Hood. It's not completely right, because Perse came back from Brescia. So he's going to be the 6th defender. And he already played a little bit last year with Lazio. So theoretically, I don't know how Inzaghi is happy about that. But Lazio had the 6th defender. I don't know if you're happy.
Yeah, probably not the one he was hoping for, it's safe to say. I think one thing that I just wanted to pick up on there about just the last point Michael was making before he left us was about wanting to have motivated players in the squad, which is obviously hugely important. We'll all agree with that. Something Rami Algendi's asking about has made me think of that too, which is what will happen now with Mauricio, Marchetti and Pereira. So this is the big question now. I suppose you'd throw Djordjevic into that too, Vittorio, about these guys who we've been trying to sell throughout the summer who are still at the club. So we talked last week about whether you'd reintegrate Kishna and Morrison if they stayed. We've managed to get rid of both of them, but
unfortunately,
for me, Marchetti is the crucial one here. I think. Well, perhaps Djordjevic as well, you could argue, because we haven't brought in another striker. So I think it would be worth reintegrating at least Marchetti and Djordjevic into the squad at this point.
I don't know if you agree, but I never understood why took off Marchetti out of squad. He could still train with the first team, etc. I don't think that would do any difference, Strakosha is the starter, you are on the bench. I don't think Vargic needed some match time to train, etc. So why put it out of the squad and make him train on his own? I didn't like that thing. And I hope that now that the transfer market is over, Marchetti could be back in the squad and could help Strakosha growing. Mauricio, as I said before, it looks like he's heavily linked with some Turkish club, so he's looking to leave. Perea is moving to Mexico or Colombia, if I'm not wrong, so he should be leaving too. But there are still plenty of other players still available, like Djordjevic, you were saying. Djordjevic, I think it's a little bit different in the sense that if Djordjevic is back in the squad, then there could be less space for Palombi, which I think it's worthy to give him more time on the field to train, to get used to Serie A rhythm, etc., etc. So I still hope that they will find a solution for Djordjevic. But I don't know if you agree, Morrison and Kishna were, apart from Marchetti, the best players we had available from the one that wasn't in the team at the beginning of the summer. So the fact that they left mean that probably they were the most valuable players. I don't know if the other will be useful for the squad.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've said this before, so I won't go into it in detail, but I do think Marchetti, just from his experience and his know-how, would be a really valuable mentor to Strakosha if he can be convinced to, recalibrate and motivate himself again. But he's a professional, so he should be able to do that. I agree with you. I don't think it's been treated the right way in terms of the players who it's clear haven't had a future at the squad. I don't think they should be left out of pre-season or completely shunned, I suppose, in the way that these guys have. So yeah, I think just because with the 3-5-2 system, it's useful to have as many striking options as we can. That Djordjevic, I agree with you. I think Palombi should be preferred to Djordjevic in the kind of pecking order under Inzaghi, but I do think it'd be worthwhile having him available as an option in case the worst happens and Immobile picks up an injury and we find ourselves a bit short.
There's still Caicedo, come on.
But there is still Caicedo. But even with Caicedo, there's that's three guys. If Djordjevic isn't involved, you're talking about three guys to cover one position across three competitions.
I don't know if you agree, but I think Felipe Anderson will be fundamental. If he's able to come back at the level we saw him against Bayer Leverkusen, against AC Milan, that will be great. But if he would be missing a lot of matches, that could be really dangerous for Lazio, because Lazio need that quality that Felipe Anderson has, that speed, that pace, that creates big problems to the opponent defense that Lazio didn't have in the last matches, and we saw how Lazio struggled. So
although getting that win over Juventus without him, that's a really promising way to start the season. And obviously the Spal game was a struggle, the Chievo game was a struggle, but it's still 2 wins and 1 draw in 3 games without him, and one of those coming against Juventus. So I think it is significant that the team have been able to cope in his absence. And actually, in the long run, I think it might suit us quite well for the team to have this experience of playing without him and knowing they can get results without him, rather than say he started this season brilliantly and then got an injury later on that they'd have to completely adapt to working without him. I agree. I think he's going to be an absolutely crucial player, and I have a lot of confidence in him in that position. So again, it all comes down to what Inzaghi's going to do now, if he's going to change the system, and I think that's going to be the most interesting thing to keep an eye on in the next few weeks, is what happens on the training ground, what happens in the matches, and if Inzaghi's going to completely change his strategy now.
Yeah, and I think that the Nani signing could be very useful, because again, don't expect Felipe Anderson to play all the season long, and so having Nani, it could be an option to change a little bit, make Felipe Anderson rest, etc. I expect to see often the 4-3-3, especially if Felipe Anderson comes back from the injury. But yeah, I think it's interesting. You were saying Lazio won 2 matches, one against Juventus without Felipe Anderson, but even without Keita and his replacement. So that's great. You know, I think Lazio is probably the only team who started the season and at a certain level and finished the transfer market in a much better level than the season started. You know, has a replacement for Keita, had another option in midfield and another defender. So I don't know what you're rating for the Lazio transfer market, but I think at the end it was good.
Yeah, I think we've had a couple of questions about the Milan game, so we can wrap up the transfer market, I suppose, in summary by kind of rating it like this, I suppose. But I think overall you've got to be quite happy in that at least not all 3 of De Vrij, Biglia and Keita have gone. We've managed to keep 1. That's better than some of us might have hoped for. We've managed to get good money for the players who have gone out, and even though it's come very late in the day, as usual, we have managed to bring in some good quality replacements, guys with experience. A couple of guys like Marasic, Pedro Neto, guys who we don't know an awful lot about, and could prove to be quite influential this season. Who knows? So yeah, I'd say for me, the Lazio's Mercato, I'd give it a good 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I think the signing of Lucas Leiva and Nani will make the difference. I think for the first time, Lazio has these experienced players. Now they have to show it even on the pitch that they can make the difference. Lucas Leiva did it against Juventus, but wasn't fit enough in the other match. Let's see what Nani brings in the team. But yeah, I agree. I think it's a 7. But again, depending on how they perform, Lucas Leiva and Nani in particular, it could go even higher or lower. If Lucas Leiva is never fit or Nani never gets chance to play because he's never at the same level of the other striker, the transfer market could go down. But yeah, I would say that surprisingly, Lazio did a good transfer market.
Yeah, and we can all unfollow Calenda on Twitter now as well.
Oh yeah, his 5 reason was simply amazing. At the end of the day, he pretty much said that he sold Keita to Monaco. So that's simply unbelievable. Yeah,
he's quite a character.
Absolutely.
Well, one very last thing on the Mercato, I just wanted to ask you, who would you say is your signing of the summer and why?
For Lazio or in general?
For Lazio.
I think, as I was saying, Leiva and Nani could make the difference. I think that Nani, if he's fit, could really be a difference maker. In Serie A player who can dribble past the defender, it's very rare. And having a team like Lazio who could play Felipe Anderson on one side and Nani on the other should be terrific, especially if in the middle there is Immobile, who's just hoping to have a lot of crosses and chances. So I think Nani could be really, really a great signing because he's just turning 31. He's willing to show everybody that he's still a great player. And so, yeah, I think he really could be a surprise. What's yours?
Yeah, well, for me, I think it's Lucas Leiva, just because I think I agree that, Nani's someone who I wouldn't be surprised if he turns out to be an exceptional signing, but I do have those concerns about the fact of the position he plays in and so on. But for me, Lucas, the price we got him for, great. The age we got him at, great. His experience, fantastic. Leadership qualities, the timing of it. He arrived as soon as Biglia was sold. Obviously, we've talked before about the fact he's not a like-for-like replacement for Lucas Biglia, but he is. I think he's going to prove to be a really excellent addition to the squad, and for the price we've got him at, I think that was a really impressive deal, actually. So yeah, for me, it's Lucas Leiva.
Yeah, I totally agree. Honestly, Lucas Leiva signing was simply amazing. I'm a little bit concerned with the 4-3-3. He could struggle a little bit because he has to show to be a playmaker, even though against Juventus he showed it. But I don't know. We're gonna see.
We will. Well, let's use that as a kind of link into previewing the Milan game. So we've had a question from Sean McIntosh. He's asking us, looking ahead towards the game next week, what should our starting 11 look like against them? Now, I don't know about you, Vittorio, but I wouldn't expect any change to the system for this game. I mean, 4-3-3 for me, if that change is going to be made, I would expect to see that being made for the Europa League group games, for example, before we see it in big matches. But given the success that Inzaghi's had with 3-5-2, particularly in a big game against Juventus, I would expect that to still be the system. Possibly, though, I think if we've already mentioned the fact that Nani and Anderson, both of them, might not be fit for this game, in which case I would expect the kind of 3-4-2-1 again with Milinkovic and Alberto behind Immobile. I wouldn't be surprised to see that, a very similar team, if not the exact same team that played Juventus.
Yeah, I totally agree, especially because I think till Nani will prove to be fit, Lazio won't switch to a 4-3-3, and I see it a little bit dangerous to do it now against AC Milan, that it's a top team. It's going to depend a lot if when Felipe Anderson and Nani are going to be available. But I think you're right. The Lazio is going to play a little bit like Juventus match, hoping that Lucas Leiva is more fit and will be able to play all the 90 minutes of the match. One thing very interesting about this match, Fernando Orsi said it today. For who doesn't know, but I think everybody knows Fernando Orsi. He's a former Lazio goalkeeper, and he said something very interesting for me. He said everybody said that AC Milan is great, everybody's care about AC Milan, but at the end of the day, Milan won 2 matches with a lot of luck, without proving to play exceptionally well. So he thinks, especially at home, Lazio has everything to beat AC Milan. It's going to be an interesting match, but he doesn't see Milan way ahead of Lazio, more the other way, more difficult to Milan to win. And I agree because Lazio played well. Of course, if Felipe Anderson is fit, I think Lazio could be ahead of Milan. Again, it's going to. I think the defense of Milan will have a big show because Immobile wasn't amazing against Chievo, but he's still very dangerous. He's fast. Lazio is very tough because it's not easy to mark Milinkovic and Luis Alberto as they move a lot. So it's going to be a very complicated test to AC Milan. Lazio is more a team that knows how to play, knows the system much more than AC Milan. So it's going to be very interesting. And I think finding Milan now is much better than playing against Milan in 10, 11 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've said that from quite early on when the fixtures came out, that it was quite good timing to play them. I think, like you say, there's a lot of hype around them because of the money they've spent, obviously, and then the form of Cutrone, who is a guy nobody really expected to be the standout name from Milan, given how much money they've spent on other players. But yeah, like you say, it's those comments from Orsi. They have played Crotone, who they should be beating, and then beat Cagliari as well. But Cagliari they really they didn't make it easy for them actually. And I think they've had a few more games, obviously, because they've come through Europa League qualifying. But they are, like you say, bedding in a lot of new players. The one thing, for example, Bonucci is, I think we can. There's no debating that that's a absolutely phenomenal signing for them. But the one thing I do wonder is Bonucci, for me, is most effective in a back three, with the BBC for Italy and for Juventus, in the middle of that back three where he can actually be a playmaker and spread passes and uses long balls and so on. But so for him, I know Juventus have played with a back four and a back three, but for me, he's a lot less effective playing in that back four. So that's something that he's going to adapt to. He's one of their big leaders that they'll be looking to in this early stage of the season. He's the captain, having already moved in. But I think Bonucci even is going to take some time, perhaps, to adapt to playing in a 4-3-3 and the new guys around him. So that's going to take some organising. And, Montella's got his work cut out because he's got this completely new team, completely new defence, and that's going to take some organising. So I think we could really prove them, cause them some problems defensively.
Can we give a shout out to Shaw McIntosh, because he's just founded a Lazio club, the Texas Laziali. So if you are hearing us and you are in Texas, please join Shaw and his new Lazio club, because he's simply amazing what he's doing, and it's simply incredible to see all this Lazio club all around the world. They're doing an amazing job. So a big congrats to Sean for what he's doing, and hope he's keeping up and grow this club bigger and bigger.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I mean, we've got listeners from all around the world, which is fantastic. So it does go to show that Lazio is something that's spread all over the world, and if people can form these clubs like Michael and Sean, then all the better. Absolutely. See how many Lazio clubs can be created all around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are happy to have you on board. If you want to join the show, just contact us. Alasdair is a little bit not very kind person, but try to contact me directly. I'm more nicer guy. So, are you unhappy that Biglia won't make it for this match? Do you miss him? Do you think it would be nice to play against him?
I'm not really bothered, to be honest. It's not really something that's featured in my thoughts much ahead of this game. I think, what's in the past is in the past. It's not like he's moved to Roma, so, he can do what he wants. As soon as he's walked out the door and said Forza Lazio to all the Milan fans.
That was amazing.
That's basically, I'm happy for that to be the last memory of him, really. So yeah, I mean, it's always, there's always a bit of satisfaction when your big players move, like Candreva, I suppose, the most recent example, and then you still end up finishing above them in the standings. But for me, it's still all about just trying to get the result, because especially after the last couple of games where things have been a lot more difficult for us, it would be, this is a really crucial match. In terms of our kind of hopes this season. I hope I don't sound like I'm over-egging it a bit, but I think for Lazio to hope to finish in the top four, they really do need to be beating the direct competition for those places, and so early in the season is a brilliant time to do that, especially with the Napoli game coming up so soon afterwards as well.
I agree. I mean, everybody's so high on AC Milan. If Lazio beat them, even with a 2-0, it would be amazing, because all this hype on AC Milan will finally stop, and people maybe will start talking a little bit more of Lazio. I think Montella has to prove to be a manager for top teams. He didn't show it completely. He had a big chance with Fiorentina and didn't go very well in the end. So that's another question mark. And I think that Lazio's tactic with Luis Alberto and Milinkovic moving around between midfield and strike, it's very complicated to manage. So I think, I don't know if you agree, that Milinkovic-Savic again could be the key player for Lazio against AC Milan.
I think so. One other thing I would like to see, I think it's unlikely this will happen, but I think I would like to see Lukaku from the start in this game, if he's fit enough. I think it's unlikely, but Lulic for me has started the season in poor form, and Lukaku against that defence, I just think that would be, something that would cause them real issues. So if I was going to make one change to the team for this game, it would be bringing in Jordan Lukaku for Lulic. But like I say, I don't think Inzaghi's going to do that. But it'll be interesting to see if his substitutions go any differently, because, like we said after the Spal game, it was just a repetition of before, and he switches the wing backs and brings on Caicedo up front. But it'll be interesting to see if he does that again in this game, for example, for that kind of energy. But particularly, I think it would be great for Lazio to start very fast against Milan, instead of letting them kind of settle into a rhythm and try and keep the ball. I think it would be quite good to, for Lazio to come out with that intensity they did against Juventus, the real kind of fast-paced, high-tempo game, and Jordan Lukaku would be a real asset if Lazio were playing that kind of game.
I totally agree. The biggest question with Jordan Lukaku is his condition, because again, last week he didn't train all the week with the first squad. He's been training on himself for fit issue. So, that's a concern. But the funny thing is that then he went playing with the national team. So how do you explain that he's not able to train with Lazio and then goes playing with the national team, which is something that you wonder. It's true that he didn't play a second in the match, but then why has he been called, etc.? So it's something we have to find out. I think that he can be a difference maker, especially with the Lulic playing that bad. I think Lukaku can be really another key player that can make the difference, because he's physical, he's fast, and he has good skill with the ball. We saw it against Juventus. So he really could be a game changer. Let's see if he's able this week to train all week long with the first squad.
Yeah, and there, if Lulic does start, there really is going to be pressure on him now to start performing, because he's been given the captain's armband. He's been looked to as one of the big players in the team, one of the leaders in the team, and he needs to start proving that he deserves that responsibility. I've stated doubts beforehand about whether that's the best role suited to him at left wing back. I'm still not sure it is, but if he plays against Milan and has another poor game, then it really is time to start rotating a bit.
I think the only problem is because Lukaku is not fit enough to play 90 minutes. Otherwise, Inzaghi would have given him a chance.
Do you think Inzaghi, if Lukaku was fit, would have already taken Lulic out of that team?
Honestly, I don't think Inzaghi is the type of coach who gives space to the leader, the experienced player. It happened already last year, and I don't think why he should be keeping playing Lulic if he thinks if Lukaku is playing better. I just think it's a injury situation. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it'll be very interesting.
Yep. Well, we're going to see next week. I think it's time to wrap it up. Otherwise, we're going to reach 1 hour of talking. So, if you don't have any other questions, obviously.
No, I'm dry now for today. I mean, all I'll say is to apologise to our listeners in advance for the fact that it's my brother's 30th birthday next weekend, which might hinder my appearance on the podcast after the Milan game. So that's going to be a shame, but I'm sure you're going to have a great time without me.
Absolutely. It's even better without you. Now just have to find a replacement. I'm going to ask George Mendes if he can give me some advice.
Yeah, get some Portuguese teenager on Lazio Lunch.
Absolutely. Well, okay, we can wrap it here. Remember, guys, you can hear us on iTunes, on Spreaker, on Twitter, on Facebook, wherever you want. You have no excuse. We are even on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Again, thank you very much, Alistair Mackenzie. Enjoy the wedding of your brother then.
Thank you very much. Will do.
Okay, have a nice week.
Bye.
Second to nobody. Just stop the world. I'm the big girl. Sing loud the chorus. Football sounding so. Come on, you eagles, there's no time to fear. Up there's an angel watching.